Now, the Philippines is the only country in the world, aside from Vatican City, that does not allow divorce. But the controversial measure remains a divisive topic now that it is a step closer to possibly becoming a law. We want to know, what are the pros and cons if divorce in the Philippines finally becomes a reality? So let's find out. Joining us is litigation lawyer, attorney Voltaire Duano. Good morning, attorney. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Now, attorney, we're talking about divorce, a controversial topic this morning. The absolute divorce bill is now in the Senate. What do you think of its chances of gaining the senator's approval?
Actually, there are senators who are actually in favor of this proposed bill, no? And you can see that the objective here is to simplify the proceedings and make it more compared to the current process. It's very expensive. So the objective of the proponents here is to make to simplify the whole process, and of course to expand the certain grounds. So they actually just adopted certain grounds under the family code. So because as of now, it's very, although we have the so-called, the most liberal type of divorce, but it's quite difficult to approve or to have an approval of that because at the present, our procedure only refers to the most liberal type of divorce that they call is the declaration of nullity of marriage, and the ground is psychological incapacity. But you can see that at present, we also have a type of divorce, but we only call that relative type of divorce. So meaning separation from bed to board. In Latin term, that's mensa et toro. We don't have the so-called absolute divorce. So I think the proponent's objective here is to, because we are the only second country in the world that has no divorce.
Yeah.
But next to Vatican. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no surprise that the Vatican does not have divorce. But then, when this version of the bill right now with the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, it's still a bit difficult. I think 5 years yung requirement in terms of in terms of separation, and then reconciliation is not deemed possible. Tama po ba yan? Or what are the qualifications for divorce, at least currently in the bill?
Actually, that so-called 5 years of, they call that de facto separation, meaning to say that it did not undergo any legal process for legal separation. But there is a provision in that proposed bill that 2 years of legal separation would also be a ground. Legal separation, meaning that is sanctioned by the court. So if they have been separated for 5 years, that would also be another ground. Because they would like to adopt the other grounds in the U.S. like the reconcilable differences. But you can see that there are also certain protective measures under the law. It's not that easy to secure also because there would be, the government will still intervene. There would be the so-called, the government through the Office of the Solicitor General or the city prosecutor. They will be directed by the court to conduct collusion investigation to see to it that the parties are not, there is no collusion, and also there is no fabrication of the evidence.
Yeah.
Now, attorney, I'm really surprised that the Philippines doesn't have a divorce law yet. So would you say it's because of the strong opposition of the church that's happening, why it can't pass at all?
Perhaps that would be the strong influence of our 400 years of Spanish colonization, and they were the one who brought here the Catholicism. And but you can see in the canon law there is also they also declare nullity of marriage because we just copied the psychological incapacity in the canon law. The church, they also sanction declaration of nullity, but under certain parameter measures, there are certain grounds. So the family code just adopted that, but it's quite complicated because of the certain different decisions of the High Court.
Now, attorney, let's talk about the pros and cons. If the divorce bill finally becomes a law, what are the advantages and disadvantages?
I think the advantage, it is more of an advantage because at the present setup is it's very difficult to obtain a declaration of nullity of marriage. We have various types of dissolution of marriage, like annulment. It's different from declaration of nullity. There are certain grounds. But the advantage here is that the grounds would be wider, there would be more grounds, and it's quite not expensive as compared to the present setup. And of course, everybody can now afford to have their marriage dissolved. That would be, I think, the advantage most, because there are those people who cannot even afford.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
that's
cost,
true.
The cost,
mainly.
yes,
It's the biggest thing. A lot of people who are advocating for divorce are also saying it could be used as a means to protect one of the partners involved from either physical abuse or any other forms of abuse. When you take a look at that argument for the divorce bill, is that one of the, I guess, one of the bigger pros looking into the people who are seeking divorce?
That's correct, because you can see the most victim of violence is the women. So actually, this is the objective of the proponent here is more on to protect women against violence. So why they would have to stay with the marriage that they can no longer endure? So
Right.
Yeah.
that's the objective is actually more on protection for women. Because they are likely the most victim of violence.
Attorney, of course, sometimes it's not just about the two individuals who are
Yes.
in marriage. It's also about the properties that they've accumulated together, and even the children that they do
children,
have. What are the provisions in this current bill that address those two?
Actually, the general provisions in the family code that will apply, because the proposed bill here is more on, the emphasis is more on the dissolution of marriage, the absolute dissolution. So we have a general provisions under the family code. How do you settle property issues?
Right.
So and of course, the Supreme Court will also issue special rules in order to implement the provisions on absolute divorce, if the same will be approved in the future.
Now, attorney, I want to just know what your thoughts are if the divorce law will pass. Like, what is your outlook, and where do you see it? I guess where do you see its placement, like here in the Philippines, and in how many years do you think, if it even passes?
As a family law practitioner, I think that would be for the advantage of those who could not afford the services of counsel. And of course, the simplification of the procedure is, I think, is, well, divorce is not actually to destroy marriage, but actually to protect. So it might appear to be appears to be very difficult to understand that, but the objective of the lawmakers here is actually to protect marriage. Even the family code, the declaration of nullity of marriage, we still value the inviolable institution, the marriage, because the objective here is to protect the basic social institution here.
Right. Sorry. So could you expound on that? That's really interesting. That divorce is there to protect the marriage, because that feels a bit counterintuitive kapag sinabi natin yan.
Yes, for the sake of our viewers, no, perhaps it's very difficult to understand the logic of saying that you dissolve the marriage, but you protect the family. And of course, the objective here is that so that people will be aware that the marriage is not just a simple contract. It's actually a special contract of permanent union that the law actually define and prescribe and protect. So the objective of protecting is that how will you be able to stay in a marriage that will not, of course, will affect the entire members of the family, especially children. And why would you stay in a marriage that can no longer be repaired?
Right.
So that's the objective here of protecting the family members.
I have a question which a little bit deviates from the topic that we have this morning. But since the Philippines does not have divorce just yet. What are the other legal remedies that are available for couples who want to separate? Because you mentioned a while ago there's legal separation, there's annulment. What are the differences?
The legal separation does not dissolve the marriage because it's only a separation from bed to board. So meaning to say, you are authorized to live separately. The right to support will be cut off, but you remain to be married. So, and certain grounds provided by the family code on legal separation, which was also adopted in the absolute divorce to make it more liberal. And right now, we have the so-called declaration of nullity of marriage, which is the psychological incapacity. The certain grounds, like when you talk about annulment, when you get married, if you are 18 years old and over but below 21 without the parental consent, that would be a ground for declaration of to have the marriage annulled. Because when we talk about annulment, it means that the marriage is valid until annulled.
Okay.
That's annulment. But when we talk about declaration of nullity, it's a void marriage, meaning the marriage is void from the beginning, but the law provides that there should be declaration of nullity of marriage for purposes of remarriage. So that's the with the proposed bill. I think there is a prescription. No? You can only file divorce 10 years from the time of the discovery of the ground.
Yeah.
But now the present setup, the psychological incapacity, has no prescription.
Okay.
So it is imprescriptible.
Attorney, there's a bit of a trend. I don't know if it is a trend actually. Rather, there have been people who get married overseas where divorce is legal, which is practically everywhere except for the Philippines and the Vatican, because the Philippines does recognize foreign divorce.
Yeah.
So there have been Filipinos who would go overseas, get married there, just so they have the capability to get divorced. Do you feel that this might have influenced the way that divorce is now being discussed here in the Philippines, considering that the Philippines does recognize foreign divorce and that could happen to Filipinos who do get married overseas?
Actually, even if you get married abroad, it doesn't mean that you can obtain divorce there. But in an instance that, let's say, two Filipinos are married and then they went to, they migrated, if they obtained the foreign citizenship at the time of divorce, then that would be recognized here. But they will still have to file a petition for recognition. The divorce law, actually, the proposal here is that automatic, if you are divorced abroad, that would be recognized here without any judicial declaration of recognition. That's the procedure has been simplified. Unlike the present setup, a marriage that has been contracted abroad, if there is valid there, it is also valid here. But the reckoning point of the validity of divorce is the citizenship at the time of divorce.
So the citizenship at the time, you have to be a citizen of the other.
Even if you got, even if you were Filipino when you got married, because before the jurisprudence actually evolved. Before, even if you obtain foreign citizenship, that will not be recognized. Because the reckoning point is that at the time of marriage. So now, the High Court actually changed that. So they made it that the reckoning point is citizenship at the time of divorce. Even if you were got married, you were Filipino citizens.
So, Attorney, I wish we had more time to ask you more questions, but for our viewers who want more clarity or are seeking for your help, where can they find you? Yep.
They can find me in the Facebook if they want. Just look for me.
Diretso na sa Facebook, guys.
And friends.
Just look for Attorney Voltaire Duano on Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you so much for joining us today, Attorney. Very insightful conversation in the morning. Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you and good morning.